Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we are discussing the Grand Seiko Spring Drive Black Ceramic Limited Edition SBGC017. You can see the 600-piece titanium and ceramic chronograph GMT with spring drive caliper, and buy it on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch, with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Onbashira Festival Spring Drive Black Ceramic Limited Edition of 600 pieces. Now, the Onbashira Festival in Japan, held for 1,200 years, once every 6 years, is kind of the Japanese equivalent of the United States Daytona Bike Week. A near religious fervor, long-standing tradition, immense danger, occasional casualties, only instead of riding Harleys in the Japanese festival, the participants generally ride logs down mountainsides in Nagano Prefecture around the Lake Suwa region, where ultimately the logs that are felled are used as the corner posts of shrines. Got all that? Good, because the watch packs more information than even that brief account of Onbashira. This is simply a massive watch that's not physically massive, but immense in its size, its complexity, and its feature count. 46.5 millimeters across the round of the case from 9 to 3. It does have a huge, larger-than-life presence on the wrist. The timepiece is hard to measure because it's irregular in its shape, so consider that 46.5 as more of an academic measurement. This is effectively a 47. In terms of thickness, on my 16-centimeter wrist, the watch doesn't stand quite as proud of the surface of my arm as I expected. 16.2 millimeters thick is thick. It's not thin, it's not moderate, but it will slide underneath a sport jacket or a suit jacket cuff simply because it's nicely profiled and sloped on its flank. From lug to lug, it's big but surprisingly manageable. 52.3 is more compact than I would expect on a watch pushing beyond the bounds of 47 millimeters, and because the composition of the case is entirely black ceramic and titanium, it is lighter than you would expect. It feels more like a 42 millimeter watch in steel on the wrist. Now, the strap is substantial, almost as thick and imposing as the trees felled in the Onbashira competition/festival. The strap is a massive, burly, and luxuriously crafted piece. Hand sewn, it's a combination of small rectangular scale black alligator leather in a semi-gloss finish with a lightly contrasting forest green or tree green stitch. You can see the sheer cut flanks are sheer and huge in their profile, such that you can see multiple layers of leather that make up the composition of the strap. And then on the backside you have the same green coloration for natural calf skin, and you have the same on both sides. As you can see, the immense cross-section of the strap helps it to hold up against the immensity of the lugs, and one actually flows nicely into the lines of the other. The proportioning is excellent. The clasp is a hybrid of stainless steel and titanium, so the parts that are smaller and comprise the functional components of the folding clasp, the inner chassis, those are steel for durability, and it does feature twin trigger release such that you must actively open by depressing both so it can't accidentally pop open. No friction fit here. Now, about the case, prior to 2016-2017, there had not been a flood of Seiko and Grand Seiko products in ceramic. This watch makes up for lost time. You could see all faceted and polished. It's not just the ability to make ceramic, but to finish it that sets truly great manufacturers apart. And here you can see Seiko applying a fascinating series of curves and creases, all of high polish. It has almost the strength and angularity of the lugs you'll see on original 1963 Hoyer Carreras, albeit on a far larger scale. Now, the ceramic is both lightweight and almost indelible, effectively as scratch resistant as a sapphire crystal, so this is a watch that's going to look great in the long term with minimal requirements for refinishing. The bezel is 24-hour scale because if you look at the green hand on the dial with the silver index at the end, it does have a 24-hour hand that can be set independent of the local hour hand, and I'll demonstrate some of the functionality of the watch in just a moment. But first, let's clear that minute hand so you can see the GMT as well as constant seconds. Let's talk a little bit about the dial. it has a pattern that's difficult to capture, but you can see it to good effect at this angle vis-a-vis my lights. There is a beautiful interlocking pattern of trees on the matte green forest inspired dial, and those are a reference to the Onbashira festival. Difficult to capture, more readily apparent to the eye in person. Nevertheless, it's not so assertive or salient that it's going to pop up and make your watch look like some sort of Earth Day special. It's there, and it's generally only visible within half an arm's length of the dial. But a handsome and thoughtful nod to Seiko and Grand Seiko's place within Japanese culture as a whole. The dial is remarkably nuanced and beautifully made. As handsome and finely finished as the case, all of the indices are faceted and polished. The hands at center feature a combination of longitudinal satin finish with sharp beveled edges that are mirror polished. The level of detailing on Grand Seiko dials is as good as any in the business, and I would even say far better than most in a competitive price point. However, this is a watch to buy pre-owned, as with an original retail price of $13,000, we're playing within the price point where new Rolex Daytonas are sold. So again, probably the best watch to buy pre-owned. You'll also note that there's a depth to the dial. There's a stepped track to the hours. Inboard, you can see the tree pattern on the inner dial, and then cuts for the sub-registers featuring chronograph minutes and chronograph hours. And there is a reassuring logic about the layout of the dial. As all the chronograph functions are isolated on the 3 o'clock side, you have minutes and hours aligned vertically. You have the date at 3 o'clock, you have constant seconds, and then you have a power reserve down at 7 o'clock. The power reserve tracing an autonomy of 72 hours. Now, the hour hand can be moved independently of all other indications. As you can see, I'm jumping time zones. I can even jump east or west across the international date line without stopping the movement, damaging the movement, or impeding chronometric precision. And the spring drive caliber, which you can see blazoned on the case back, is rated as accurate to within 15 seconds plus or minus per month. Keep in mind that the Swiss chronometer standard, based on the ISO 3159, calls for accuracy no worse than -4 + 6 per day, so this is an unerringly accurate timepiece. Now, if you want to set it to the second, you pull the crown out to extremity, and now you can set everything in sequence. You can see the 24-hour hand moves in sync with the local 12-hour hand at center, and you stop the seconds, again, for synchronizing to a known accurate reference time, such as an online atomic clock. Though the watch is automatic winding, you can see the power reserve scale at 7 o'clock, sweeping towards its full end of its calibration as you wind. And of course, the watch does feature a number of handsome and thoughtful refinements. Note the step of the date window and its framed aperture. Note how it's cut and perfectly chiseled into the flank of the hour chapter ring. The high contrast of the white on matte green printing. The double circumferential ring for the start-stop pusher and the single ring for the reset pusher. The deep and beautifully polished faceted knurling of the crown. This is a handsome and thoughtfully detailed watch, and it continues on the case back. Now, the spring drive caliber is a hybrid, let me get the focus back in, is a hybrid of mechanical and just a little bit of quartz technology. All of the energy is generated by the winding rotor or manual winding, converted from kinetic energy into spring potential energy. The spring potential energy then drives a conventional jeweled drivetrain, which turns the regulator wheel that you see just under my finger. It moves in one direction. As it spins, it creates an induced electrical current that wakes up a quartz oscillator. There are no batteries or capacitors in the watch. All the electricity is induced and generated by the spring energy turning that wheel. Now, once the quartz oscillator wakes up, it will induce a back EMF, or an opposing electromagnetic force, to slow or speed up the governing wheel as necessary. So the self-sustaining system is how the watch manages to achieve its unerring accuracy. And because the governing wheel moves in only one direction, you'll note that the sweep of the seconds hands, completely smooth, no steps, no alternations, no start stops. It's not a rate It is just a continuously sweeping seconds hand. The only thing like it, Piaget has tried to emulate this technology, but so far hasn't really serialized it, so Grand Seiko continues to stand alone with this unique system that required the years between 1977 and 1999 to bring to market, only coming to market as an automatic in 2005. Now you'll note a couple of traditional elements here, as the chronograph mechanism is both column wheel and vertical clutch. You can see the chronograph with its levers, and you can see the horns interacting with the column wheel. As I start and stop, you'll note, thoughtfully designed, you can't accidentally reset it while it's in motion. Beautifully executed, it has the crisp feel you associate with the column wheel, and the total lack of jump or stagger upon starting that you associate with a vertical clutch. Plus, because there is no additional wear or tear on the movement when you're operating a vertical clutch chronograph continuously, if you prefer to have center seconds, you can just leave it running with no additional wear or tear to the movement or the watch. This is the caliber 9R96A, automatic 3-day power reserve indicator, 50 joules, and ultimately protected down to 100 meters. So throw this watch, dedicated to a land ceremony on a water-resistant band, and becomes a aquatic sports watch. So you're going to have to find kelp forests perhaps under the waves to match the original imagery of the dial. Nevertheless, a watch welcome in all circumstances, so long as you have the wrist for it. I would say the lower limit for wearing this watch with proportion likely is a 15 centimeter circumference wrist. See it and decide for yourself on our website.